name is Fernando Escobar with FabTV, and I'm sitting here with Cole Hauser. And Cole, did you ever wrestle in high school or college?
No, I have not. I had a couple of buddies that wrestled, but yeah, the only wrestling I did was with my brothers and sisters as a young man. But I got to actually roll around with a guy up in Washington State. He's a Cougar, and man, I mean, talk about in shape. And I mean, I was gassed after 5 minutes. I was done.
Yeah, wrestling's a tough, tough sport. Can I ask you a question about, because this movie's about wrestling and about redemption? How come when in real life, when there's a fight, everyone still hates each other, but when it gets down to wrestling and someone ends up winning, you're kind of like friends after. You're kind of like, oh yeah, you beat me. It's cool. Why do we have that feeling in wrestling versus a punch?
Well, I mean, before you start a match, you have to shake hands. I mean, that's kind of the prototypical way of starting. So, it comes from a place of respect. I mean, if you watch MMA or you watch even some of the great boxers of all time, there is a certain amount of respect there for, your opponent. And I think that's the gentleman way it should be, and the classy way. So I respect that tradition that wrestlers have.
Have you ever been a real life coach?
No, this was my first opportunity to kind of play a coach, and I loved it. I mean, I could do a whole film of just coaching. I'm a big football fan, so I mean, if but I mean, you just have the opportunity to not only inspire people, but you know, instead of tearing them down like some coaches that I grew up with, is actually, building them up, not only physically, but mentally, as a coach. And that's the kind of coach that I like. And that's the kind of coach that John Wright is.
When I was watching The Last Champion, it seemed like, that's why I asked you that question, that it looked like you had coaching experience because the way you were like yelling out and making everybody, train. So that's why I'm giving you a compliment that it seemed like you were a coach. So maybe the football in you helped you be this way.
Yeah. I mean, I have two boys too, which I kind of coach, when I'm around in sports. So I'm used to, I think I'm learning how to become a better father coach than I once was when they were younger. I'm not somebody who yells at them, but I think I put at times a little too much pressure on them to be successful, just because I love, athletics. That's something I always played when I was a kid. So.
Is that one reason why you leaned towards doing this film, because it had to do with sports?
I've never done a sports film like this. I mean, I'd done School Ties, 100 years ago, and mostly military stuff I've done. So I felt like there were a lot of reasons. One is, John Wright, and being able to kind of take a character, from the ashes of life and build him back up, and seeing him get his confidence through his coach, through his ex-girlfriend, through the people in the town, through faith, and be able to see a character really kind of grow in this inspirational story of not only me, but of, this young man that I take and teach him wrestling, but teach him life.
Message of this film for athletes that were there and then some type of comeback or redemption. What's like the message?
I mean, I think the message for athletes is, if you've fallen, it's the same thing with actors. It's like I've failed more than I've won in this business, and I think with athletes, sometimes, they're put on such a pedestal like John Wright, that the pressure of being, the top dog, the top wrestler, it gets to these guys, and ultimately they do things like cheat and take steroids or take, HGH, or you name it. I mean, you look at Lance Armstrong. I mean, that the amount of pressure on him to become and to continue to be the athlete that he, I guess in his mind wanted to be, and what other people, wanted him to be, drove him to do what he did. And he talks a lot about that in his documentary. And I can understand that playing this character, is that there is so much responsibility and pressure on you.
Well, you did a fantastic job. I saw another level in your acting here where in some ways when I was watching you, I didn't even know it was you. I was like, you just seemed like the guy. You were John Wright. So,
Thank
so awesome job and great talking to you.
You. You take care.